That's what it means, like mother, like daughter.
Is that she took on that same level of Mesiras Nefesh.
He came back to her and he said he can't stay married because his nafshi. I can't have two loves. Right? So she said, but I'm never going to stop you. So divorce him. And that was the like mother.
Interesting. Well, it makes it stims. Okay, so yesterday we were learning about Moiredes. And we learned that there's two types of Moiredes. There's a Moiredes who's just trying to be Mitzayir. She's trying to be Mitzayir, her husband. And this is a Moiredes who became repulsed from her husband. And we learned that all of this Torah that we had about the Machlokes, if you take off from her ksuba 7 trepiks or 7 dinarim per day, according to the first Mishnah, and then according to the Chachamim, they just announced for 4 weeks in shul that this woman is a Moiredes, and then he gives her get and she loses it. She loses ksuba, and it's just a 4-week ordeal. That applies to a Moiredes who wants to torture her husband, right? Yes, it is. It's just as much as a punishment for him. I asked Moshe during yesterday, asked the Gabba, how exactly would he announce it? I said, let's say the guy in shul is not getting along with his wife. So you ask Gabba, you would have to announce it. So how would you do it? You do that before the Daf Yomi, after the Daf Yomi, before Kiddush, after Kiddush. Exactly, where would you stick it in? Before the lady shir, not the lady shir. The Mrs. So was speaking on the topic of Shalom Bayis. Once we're on the topic of Shalom Bayis, I still want to make an announcement. Who doesn't have Shalom Bayis today? I'm not sure exactly how it will be done. But I'll call him the other type, the Gemara says, if it's because she claims that he's Mo'os Alai, so there you don't force her to live with him, and right away it's Yosy, but she does not get her ksuba. And we were discussing what about begodim that she had that she brought in with her? Can she keep those begodim? So the Gemara relates a story with Rab Zvid. I'm not sure if I said over the story about Rabbi Elyashiv. Did I say over the psak about Rabbi Elyashiv yesterday? I just said the psak. Okay. So the daughter-in-law of Rabbi Zvid had a problem that she didn't want to be with her husband anymore, Rabbi Zvid's son. And there were 3 titans that were discussing the Shaila, who was a Meimar, Marzutra, and Ravashi. And Rav Gamda was sitting as well by them. And he heard them say that Pashtus, she should not be able to keep even those begodim. She loses everything that's included in her ksuba, even those items that she brought into the marriage with her. So Rav Gamda said, just because Rav Zvid is such a powerhouse, that's not the reason for you to paskin wrongly just to pander to him. Because we learned that the Rava said it's not so simple. It's a shaila as to whether or not she can keep those begodim. So that's what the story that we learned yesterday. And now we're going to learn another version of that same story, which is on the second line from the bottom on Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis, Ikad Amri. Ikad Amri, there's another version as to how this event went down. Yosy Vika Amri, they were discussing this very same shaila. Marda lo yafsida, and they said Marda lo yafsida v'lo kayam. She does not lose her assets that she brought in, her begotten that she brought in with her. So therefore, she's entitled to take those begotten with her, which means they were paskening the opposite, against Rabbi Zvid's favor. Once again, you can't win. You're like they say, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Amar Rav Gamda said that's also not a good psak. Mishum de Rabbi Zvid gaver rabahu, because Rabbi Zvid is a great man. And Rashi says, and v'lo ya'arer achar al devarenu machmas an v'sanusai. Because Rabbi Zvid is the type of person who will accept whatever you say, does that mean you can take advantage of him? Avchisele ledina iluya, you're going to make the din wrong. Rashi l'chayvasa, you're prosecuting against his favor. Ha'amar Rav Kahana said, "Mi boy lo rava v'loy poshet." So Zok Gemara, Hashed lo itmar loy hachi, since we don't have a klara psak either way, whether she can keep those begotten that she brought in. Therefore, tavsa loy mafkina mina. If she was toifus and she's the muchsuk, she can keep those begotten. Loy tavsa, but if she didn't take those begotten, loy yavinula, you wouldn't give them to her. Umashehinan law, Teresa Yachishata, Agita, but you still wait 12 months before you give her a get, because we always want to try to fix this marriage. She does not get mezainis. There's actually a shaila if what I said shot in this last line in the Gemara is correct. I said it in reference to this woman who's mows from her husband, and in reference to that, we tell her we don't let them get a get right away. We're afraid maybe she'll realize that she might have made a mistake. So therefore, we delay it. We put them into therapy for a year, and if they can't come to terms with each other, then in fact you have to let them get a get. That's one shot. There are others who learn that other Rishonim will learn that this is going on the main case of Moeredis, where we had the machloikis. If you just take off a little every month, a little every week, or if you wait 4 weeks, there are those old in that case, even there's full-blown Moeredis, you also give it a year. So it's a shadow what that's referring to.
Again, Moeredis means that she doesn't live with him.
Moeredis means she doesn't want to have relations with him. And according to one shita, we also want it could be that it's also if she doesn't want to give him her Maisha Yadayim. Now, being that we ran into the top of Gavra Rabbah, I cannot control myself from sharing with you what a Gavra Rabbah is. Mati's already smiling because Mati knows what I'm talking about. Our Rav, Rabbi Lohi, taught us what a Gavra Rabbah is. And Rabbi Lohi taught us that a Gavra Rabbah, it says, there's a story with I think it was Reb Chaim Oizer, who met the Ostrovtzer. I assume they were both in the same generation, and it's not known in the story who said what to who. Either Reb Chaim Oizer, either one was mechabed the other to say a dvar Torah, and one said to the other, I think if I'm not mistaken, the way the Rav said it over was that the Chaim Oizer told the Ostrovtzer, you're such a big goyin, you should be the one who should say the Torah. And the Ostrovtzer told Chaim Oizer back, you're a Gavra Rabbah. And the Gavra Rabbah is the one who should say the Torah first. Why are you a Gavra Rabbah? What's the definition of Gavra Rabbah? So the Gemara says, what's a Gavra Rabbah? It says that the Rabbanon are Gavra Rabbah. Why? Because the Torah says, the Gemara and the Makkah says, I always wonder how weird it is for people who stand up for a Sefer Torah, but don't stand up for a Gavra Rabbah. And a Gavra Rabbah is greater than the Torah. Why? Because the Torah says, the Torah says when you give someone Malchus, you give him 40 Malchus, and the Gavra Rabbah says, no, it's only 39 Malchus, because the Rabbanon trump the Torah, and they say that 40 Malchus doesn't mean 40 Malchus. It really means 40 minus 1, it means 39 Malchus. So the Ostrovtzer asked, why did the Gemara bring a raya from there that Chacham are better? There's by the Malachas. I think by the Malachas, or there's a different place earlier in the Torah where it also talks about 40 and Chazal says 39. So the Ostrovtzer answer is that Stam being able to overrule the Torah, that doesn't make you a Gavra Rabbah. A Gavra Rabbah is somebody who can prevent Klal Yisrael from having pain. If the Torah says 40, and you say, no, we can't give a guy 40 pitch, a Yid should get 40 pitch, we want to minimize his pain, and they bring it down to 39. That's a Gavra Rabbah. So the officer told the Chaim Oizer, you're so misasik in helping people that they should not have pain, you're a Gavra Rabbah. You should say Pshat. So if you remember the Rav told us too, I as a Rav who's so careful in my shul that people shouldn't become sick from COVID, and we have masks and we have Purim barriers and Purim tablecloths, that's a Gavra Rabbah. That's the Rav. I mean, he didn't use those words exactly. The Rav said that since we're so makbid in the shul on making sure people stay healthy, that's a Gavra Rabbah. Am I saying it over wrong? That's it. So that's what a Gavra. So when we look at Gavra Rabbah, I wanted to remind ourselves, Vostos is a Gavra Rabbah, especially since that right outside you see the Purim barriers that were just thrown out. The shul's been Bayrech when covered. They want to get rid of the Zecha covered. So
how do we type up this Rashi?
Such a person wouldn't be married. Al Dvareinu. Such a Gavra won't be married.
So it's not a definition of a Gavra Rashi.
Right, it's a symptom.
It seems like Rashi is saying a definition, but no, it's saying.
That's right. Okay, so Zok the Gemara weiter. I'm sorry about the I couldn't contain myself. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Omer Rav Tuvi bar Kusna, Omer Shmuel. Rav Tuvi bar Kusna, Omer Shmuel said the following: Koisvin Igeris Merit. You write in the Igeris Merit. You write a star that this woman is rebelling against her husband, and that means to start the process of either taking off from her tshuba every week or the 4 weeks, depending on whether or not we're following the Chachamim or the first shot in the Mishnah. So you write in the Geras Merit al Arusa, but the ain kois in the Geras Merit al Shemeret Sham, not on the Shemeret Shabbat. Metzifreit the Gemara. We had a brisa that says they're all the same. Achas li Arusa, who refuses to do Nesuin, or a Nesua who refuses to do Bia, or Afilu Anida, like we learned, because she's taking away his pas pasalim. Afilu Chayla, Vafilu Shemeret Shabbat. So you see, they all follow the same rules. How could you make a distinction between Shemeres Yovim and Arusa? So Kasha, Kancha Tavahu, Kancha Tavahi. When he says, I want to do Bia and she doesn't let, then even a Shemeres Yovim that is considered a Meredes, and they write a star. But when she wants it and he's refusing, that's where Shmuel said that only an Arusa has a star merit, which will be written against him, but not a Shemer Shah. Tovahu, if he's complaining that she's not giving him, she's a Meredes, then Niskach and Loi. Then you listen to him and you take on this case. Tavahi ain't Niskach and Loi. So you see that there's not the justice is not equally applied. If a man complains, then we take on this case. If a woman complains, we don't take on their case. Before you get too excited and think it's not fair, everything's going to be very fair at that. But Mayo Kimta.
But the whole reason is because a man should be there.
No. That's a heilige. That's a kedusha. This is already. I have a responsibility to her. This is business. I have a responsibility to her. She has a responsibility to me. And when I don't fulfill my responsibility, I don't get sanctioned. But when she doesn't fulfill her responsibility, she does get sanctioned. So Zok to Gemara. That's when Shimon, right? So Shmuel said that a Shemesh Yovim who mourns cannot claim Merida, they won't go through the process, but if she's in a Arusa, they will go through the process. So if that's the case, what's the Lashon? The Lashon is wrong. What did he say? He said, Koisvin Igeris, Mered al Arusa. Right? What did Shmuel say? Koisvin Igeris Mered al Arusa. You write in the Igeris Mered on an Arusa. If you're writing it on an Arusa, who is the complainant? The complainant is the husband, right? So if you're learning that Shmuel speaking where she's the complainant, so Koisvin Igeris Mered al Arusa, li Arusa miboyle. You write it for her about her husband who's not complying. Zakmar haloi kasha, tani la Arusa. Okay, we'll change the wording around. That's not a big deal. Frank the Gemara, I don't understand. So Shmuel said, if she's the complainant, if she's an Arusha, she'll get her Geras merit. But if she's only a Shemeres Yavim, she will not get her Geras merit. Why not? Maishna Shemeres Yavim Deloy. Why does a Shemeres Yavim? Why is she not entitled to the Geras merit? The Armin law, they tell her, Zil, get out. We're not following up on your complaint because Laim of Kedes. What do you want? That she should boil you? You're not Mechiv on period for Rebbe anyway. So big deal, which really is a little bit in line with what you said. So that's why there's more of a right for him to man because he has a chiyuv for a rule. You don't.
We talked yesterday about that. The song was by him.
So that's what the Gemara is going to actually go. Arusa Nami, the Gemara gets very graphic. Arusa Nami, and Arusa as well. Why do we write a star merit on her behalf against him? Name Allah, Zil, Loim of Kappas. If he doesn't want to be Zokat to you, too bad. Anyway, there's no chiyuv of prayer of your review. Ella, Beba Machmas time. Why is she demanding, as an Arusa, why is she demanding that he makes Nesuin? The Amra Ba'ina Chutter Liyada, Umar Lekvura. and we had this in Yavamas. She said, I might not be Nechuyim Purabu, but I want children who are going to take care of me when I'm older. A child who I'll be able to lean on when I'm older to walk, and a child who will dig a grave for me, a child who will make a levaya for me. I want to have children of that. So Zok to Gemara, if that's your time, why they write in the Gerish merit for her when he doesn't want to make Nesuin, so then Hachanami Shemesh Yovim. So she could have the same claim there. So what is the svara to make a distinction between a Shemesh Yovim and an Arusa? Therefore, we're going to abort this teretz and we're going to have a different teretz. In either case, it's speaking or Himon. So we have a brisa that says that even a Shemesh Yovim, if he monzer, they do right in the Gerish merit. Yet we have Shmuel who says that if he monzer Yavama, he does not get a Gerish merit. Kan lachloitz v'kan liyabein. Damer apadas and Rabbi Tova lachloitz. If he tells her, I want to make chalitza, and she doesn't want to do chalitza, she doesn't want to do anything. I'm not interested in getting remarried. I don't want to go through the chalitza process. Then it's kakaloi. Then you force her. So we take up his complaint. So when the brisa says that shemeres yovim is subject to the sanctions, that's if she doesn't want to accept the chalitza. But Tavel Yavim, what if he wants to do Yibam and she doesn't want to do Yibam, she wants Chalitza, then Ein is Kokenloi. Then you tell him, too bad, give her a Chalitza. You cannot force Yibam on her. Why wouldn't we force her to do Yibam? The Amrinle will tell him. Okay, Tavel Lachloit is Kokenloi, Tavel Yabim, Ein is Kokenloi. Go find yourself another wife. It had to be this woman, your brother's wife, who you want to force into it. Find a different wife. Well, lachalitz nami by chalitz as well. We could tell him the same thing. The name of the zil nesiv, it's achriti. So why is it that we're going to force her and sanction her to accept the chalitza? Ella, the teretz is the reason why he's insisting on getting his chalitza is the amar kibin dagidabi. Women are not going to want to date me if they know that I have a zika to another woman. No one's going to want to marry me. I'm not going to be able to find another wife if people see that I have a wedding ring, I have a wedding band still. In other words, I'm still zokah to another woman, so it's going to be hard to find a shidduch. So zok to Gemara hachanami. So then the Rabbi Yibam as well. Kivin dagida bi loy kayav lu achriti. Ella. Once again, we have to abort, and we're going to have another teretz. In either case, he's wanting her to do Yibam, and she refuses to do Yibam, and she only wants to do Chalitza. And then Shmuel says, you don't write a star merit if she refuses to do Yibam, and the Braya says you do write a star merit if she refuses to do Yibam. V'lo kasha. Kan Commissioner Rishona, where they used to do Yibam, Kan Commissioner Achroinim, where we don't do Yibam anymore, like Abba Shaul said, if it's not done Hashem Shemayim, it's an Aveira. The Tanan mitzvahs Yibam koidamis lamitzvahs Chalitza. Really, you're supposed to do mitzvahs yibum. That's the primary mitzvah. It's before mitzvahs chalitza. And by Ration, show you mischaben l'shum mitzvah. Originally, when people did it, it was only l'shem mitzvah. That would be good to do yibum first. But achshav shem mischaben l'shum mitzvah. People don't have the purest of kavanas. Amru, they said mitzvahs chalitza kaidemis lamitzvahs yibum. So when Shmuel said we're not zokah to him, that's now, because nowadays people don't have the purest kavanah. So Yibam isn't the ultimate. You're supposed to do Chalitza. The Brisa was speaking before that. In fact, we know by the Sfardim, they still do Yibam today. Right? They do Yibam today. I mentioned that when they established the chief rabbinate of Eretz Yisrael in 1948, they wanted to make it, the Ashkenazi Rabbanim that were in the committee wanted to establish minhag Eretz Yisrael. Right now we have a chief rabbinate, we control the country. We'll have uniform minhagim. It won't be like in Europe where every shtetl had their own minute. So they wanted to make it. They wanted a fear ein that you don't do yibam, we only do chalitza. And this far this Rav Yosef and this whole chaver they touch a tumul. How could you do that? We have to follow the Yosef. We're not going to agree to that. And in fact, they didn't implement it because as far as they do yibam.
By regular marriage, we don't say you have to do it with mitzvah.
Because there is not a problem of Eshazach. Right? Even if it's not total L'Shem Mitzvah, there's no Eshazach in there.
No other mitzvah is it like that? Within the group of mitzvahs, do we have that you Bela if you're not speaking at the same time?
I'm not aware.
That's just the time.
Yeah. He said you can ask him anymore.
You know what they asked the time the other day? Lenny told me. He said,
He's not alive. When was the other day?
the other day, Lenny told me,
Oh.
they asked us for a time, and the time said, the question was, why weren't the brothers upset at Yaakov Avinu? They were upset at Yosef. It wasn't Yosef's fault. It was just as much Yaakov's fault. Why would they upset?
No, the Tata husband is Kangashis.
Right, so they asked us to,
The Chaim.
Chaim. The Chaim said, you'll never, ever, ever find this in any sefer. You won't find it in a sefer, because only in this generation do you have kashas on the top.
Ooh.
That's how the Chaim answered it.
Wow. Okay, so the Gemara, Admosai who places. So the Gemara goes through the cheshbon that either 3 dinarim for a husband, he has to up to ksuba, or 3 trepics, or on the other hand, if she's a meredis, you deduct 7 dinarim or 7 trepics. So what is a trepik? Amar Rabsheshes, it's an istira. It's a coin called an istira, which Rashi says is a sela medina. And how much is that? The kama istira. So if you more palgo the zuzah, the half of a zuz. And Rashi gives us a little bit of currency information. Zuz tsuri. So what type of zuz are we talking about? A zuz of tsuri. Shehu sheish mo'o kasef. A zuz tsuri is 6 mo'. So just to give us some basics currency, a zuz is 1/4 of a dinner. So there were 4 zuz in a dinner. So a zuz is 6 mo', which I believe means a dinner would have 24, 6 times 4, 24 mo'. So nimsa terepik is shloisha mo'is. If a terepik is a half of a zuz, and the zuz is 6 mo', so a terepik is 3 mo', right? So a terepik is 3 mo'. Tanya Nami Hochi, Abuda Omer, shloisha terapikim, it's 3 terapiks, shehein teisha mo'im. So 3 trepics is the amount that we sanction the man. We sanction him 3 trepics a week, which would work out to 9 moin. Why? Because 3 times 3 is 9, right? So it's a total of 9 moin, which means if you divide the 6 days of the week divided by, if you take the 9 moin and you divide it by the 6 days of the week, it works out to mo v'chati l'chol yom. He sanctioned a ma and a half every single day, but he's not sanctioned for Shabbos. The Shabbos. Her we sanction 7 dinarim or 7 trepics, which means we sanction her for Shabbos as well. You don't sanction him on Shabbos. A woman who we're not giving her anything, we're taking away from her. It doesn't look like we're paying her. Either way, it's not Schar Shabbos. But it doesn't look like Schar Shabbos even because she's not getting anything on behalf of Shabbos. It's just at the end when they do the reconciliation and tally up the ksuba bill, they'll take that off for ksuba. But him on Shabbos, you're going to be adding money. We're going to be adding to his fine. That's mechse k'schar Shabbos. So basically, the husband got it better on the technicality. And that's why they don't. And that's why they don't stick him for Shabbos. But the question is, in general, why is his fine much less? Right? By him, it's 3 trepics a week. By her, it's 7. So here's where the Gemara gets very graphic. Why is he sanctioned much more lightly than she sanctioned, who's much more severe? Amalei, come on. You want to know why it's a bigger problem if she withholds intimacy than if he withholds intimacy? We all know. Say v'lanoid mishuk shel zoynis mi soicher me. Who's renting prostitutes? Who are the prostitutes and who's paying for them? It's the Johns who are paying and the prostitutes are charging. It's not that common where it's the man who's selling himself and it's the woman who's buying it. So obviously the men are so much more desperate for intimacy, and therefore it's logical that he's suffering more from her withholding it than she would be, and therefore she's sanctioned much stronger. Davar Achar is even more explicit. If someone is aroused and he's not satisfied, he'll have a flashlight in his pocket. It's noticeable that he has an issue, which is embarrassing for him. Her, if she has a taiva, you can't tell. So it's publicly embarrassing for somebody who wants to have intimacy and can't. So because he's embarrassed physically from the situation, he's entitled to a greater payment.
The Gemara says that
The Gemara likes it of TOT. The Gemara says it the way it is. The Gemara doesn't pull any punches.
the Gemara says that the bechutz is because of embarrassment.
Let's see Rashi. V'yitre mebechutz kishuyov nicker umesgana. So it's very, very explicit. Okay. Zog tehelig Gemara weiter. I couldn't find Rishonim and Achronim to be masber what these two svaras were. So Vaisach doesn't need any clarification. Zog tehelig Mishnah. Now we're getting very much into math and markups. Hamashra es ishtoi al yedei shlish. What if somebody is there's a shayla what this means if he's what it means is that he's not sharing his food with her, he's having a third party give her the necessary supplies that she needs, and the question is how much he has to give her. But the question is he allowed to do that? Is a man allowed to tell his wife, I don't want to live with you, I'll just send you money? So that's a big shayla. So there are those who are trying to learn that this mission is speaking by somebody who for business is traveling, right? He could be a gomel, he could be a chamor who's away on business, and he's allowed to go away, right? So maybe such a person, or there are Rishonim who that you're allowed to do this. So Hamashras Ishto Yodei Shlish, how much does he have to give her? So there's also a child, if he's eating with her, does he have to give her so much? Or if he's poor, he just gives her what he shares with her, whatever he has. Or could be, if he's poor, you still have to be mechayiv him to give him more, to give her more. So whatever the case is, lo yifchoisla, he shouldn't give her less than the following: either shnei kavin of chitin, and this is per week, either 2 kavs of wheat per week, or me'arboa kavin soirim. And the Gemara is going to tell us that soirim of our lower grade, and they don't yield as much. So therefore, if you give her barley, you have to give her more. Rabbi Yosy, loy pasak la soirim. You don't give her soirin, only Ela Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel was the only one who gave soirin. Why? So Yisamuch le'edom, because he was right near Edom, and we'll see in the Gemara why he discusses why Rabbi Shmuel was near Edom. We'll discuss soirin. The Noishin, in addition to the grain that he gives her, he has to give her chatzi kav kidneys, a half a kav of kidneys, the chatzi loig shaman, and a half a loig of oil. The kav groigris, and he has to give her a kav of dried out figs, or imona devela, or he should give her a portion of pressed figs, which are given. The difference in devela and groigris, they're both dried figs, but devela is sold by the pound, and groigris are sold by the individual. And if he doesn't have this precise shopping list, then Paisek Lumasan Paris Mimachamacher. He can give her other types of Paris, but of equivalent nourishment to these. And in addition to food, he has to give her other household items. The Noisin La Mita, a bed, Mafetz and Machzelas. Rashi says they're both mats, but Machzelas is a softer mat than a Mafetz, so I guess it's how they put together their beds. The Noisin La Kapala Roisha, he has to give her a hair covering. Rashi says once a year he has to buy her a shetel, v'chagar lemosneh, and he has to give her a belt, umin olim, and shoes. He has to give her mimoyed lemoyed every yom tov. So the kappa and the chagar is maybe only once a year. Rashi says there are other Rishonim who argue and say it's not once a year. He just has to always give her whenever she needs. He has to replace it. Umin olim is mimoyed lemoyed. Shoes he has to give her every yom tov. V'kelim shel chamishim zuz, and he has to give her clothing worth 50 zuz, mishana l'shana. Every year he has to buy her new clothes. Sorry? That was what? So he has to give her clothes worth with 50 zuz every year. The ein noisn law, and when you give her begadim, we learned this earlier in the Masechta, loy chadashim b'yimoisachama. We learned that the new begadim are very, very warm. So you don't give her the very warm clothing in the summer because it'll be too hot for her. Rather, you give those to her at the beginning of the winter. And not warm clothing to be because there you need warmer clothes, and these clothes aren't so warm. You give her 50 zuz worth of kalim, and when do you give them to her new at the beginning of the winter? And come the summer, those clothing will be somewhat worn and not provide so much warmth, which is perfect for summer clothing. And even though you buy her new clothing every year, she gets to keep the old clothing as well. Then we learned this as well. Then you have to give her discretionary spending. You give her a more kassav per week just for her own discretionary spending. And this is during the week, but still, she eats with him on Friday nights. So we're going to soon see that he doesn't have to provide her in this list food for Friday night because that meal she's eating with him. What if he doesn't give her this more? And we learned that the moiser ma'aseh is connected this more kesef, so we won't get the moiser ma'aseh. We actually had a shaila if the moiser ma'aseh is connected the more and the regular ma'aseh is connected the mezonius, or it was the opposite. Umahi oisaloi. So what ma'aseh dayin does she have to produce for him? Mishkal chomish shloim shesi b'Yehuda shein eser shloim beglil. She has to spin the weight of 5 shloim worth of shesi, which is a thicker thread, or mishkal eser shloim orev, or the thinner thread, 10 shloim b'Yehuda shein eser shloim beglil. Vim ha'isamanika. What if she was nursing at the time? So she's busy nursing; she can't work so hard. Then if she's nursing, then during that period of time, she does not have to produce as much. And not only that, not only does she get to produce less, you have to give her extra mezainis because she's nursing. This is the bare minimum. But someone who's wealthier and he's mechubed, of course, they would demand more of him to support his wife in a more grand fashion. So she has to work less and she gets more. Which is nursing. That's right. So Dr. Gemara. It doesn't say.
I thought there had to be a catch because if I would tell my wife and daughters that there's only 2 seasons for clothes, winter and summer, they would tell me I'm crazy. So here's the catch. If you can afford more, you have to give more. They always want new clothes. It's not just in the winter.
That's what Duvi was saying.
You can only buy them clothes. Buy them clothes once a year.
Say that they always want new clothes. Duvi said they always need new clothes.
Oh, they always need new clothes. I never have any clothes. That's what I hear. I never have any clothes. Here, you only have to buy them clothes once a year.
How many teenage daughters is here?
Mati wants to know how many teenage daughters you have.
I have 3. Well, no, I only have 1. My 2 oldest are in their 21 and 20. So I only have 1 teenage.
And those are also teenage. Today you're a teenager until you're in your 40s. So who is our Mishnah? So now it's going to be a little bit of a complicated financial question. We're going to quote a 3-way machloikesu. And our Mishnah will not be consistent. So our Mishnah that says that 1 kav of wheat is enough to give her 14 meals. 7 days a week, 2 meals per day is 14 meals. Our Mishnah that says you have to give her enough for 14 meals and that 1 kav can produce 14 meals, that's not going to be consistent with Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, V'lo Reb Shimon, and it won't be consistent with Reb Shimon. The time we learned, the Kama Shiurei. We were talking about a Erev Tchumen. By Erev Tchumen, you put your meals down in a place where you want to be koveyor yourself for Shabbos, so that becomes your pivot point, your center, and then you can go more than 2,000 amos away from your home. If you place this Erev just under 2,000 amos from your home, then you can go actually 4,000 amos because you can go till that point and further on. So how much is it? It's mozayin shtei sudos l'chol echad ve'echad. Every person that's being part of this Erev has to have 2 sudos. And what type of sudos? Mezoynei l'choy v'loy l'shabbos. The food that he would need, the bread that he would need for the weekday, not for Shabbos. Divrei Meir, b'yudah l'shabbos v'loy l'choy. V'zeh v'zeh mischavnin l'hakla. Sai Reb Meir and Sai Reb Yehuda, whether you say it's the amount of bread you need for a Shabbos Suda, or whether you say it's the amount of bread you need for a weekday Suda, they're both trying to say it's less bread. Reb Meir, who said it's lechoil, held that people ate less bread on Shabbos than they ate bechoil. So that's why he said it's a Suda schoil. But Reb Yehuda held that no, since there's so many other foods to eat on Shabbos, people actually eat less bread on Shabbos. So therefore, it's the lesser amount, which is the bread that you would have for Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika Omer, and this is where it gets complicated. Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda didn't give you a very specific amount. They just said whatever you eat in the weekdays, whatever you eat on Shabbos. Reb Yochanan gave you a specific measurement, and this is where we're going to need a little bit of math. Kikar halakuach bepunjin. What is mozain shtei sudois? One kikar that's purchased with a punjin. So if you could buy a kikar with a punjin, that kikar, that bread, that bilka will be enough for 2 sudos. But the question is, we need more context. What do you mean a kikar aleach punjin? It's me'arba soyin l'sela. That's if when the rates of buying wheat is 4 soyin for a sela, if you could buy 4 soyin of wheat for a sela, and under those conditions, you buy a kikar for a punjin. So we're using the general cost of wheat to give us context as to how big this kikar will be that you buy for a punjin. That's called mozoin beis sudois. So basically, the kikar that you buy with a punjin is enough for 2 sudois. So now you see where we're going with this. Where we said that one kav is enough for 14 sudois. Will that stem with a kikar alakuch the punjin being good enough for 2 sudois? So let's see what the calculation is, and for that we need Rashi. I was actually trying to make a spreadsheet and then I fell asleep. So we have to do it in Rashi. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, nosan shir kotzov. He gave a very precise shir. Kikar halakuch bepidyon. What kikar is enough for 2 meals? It's a kikar that you would pay the merchant a punjan for. But what is the rate? It's kishalochen dalit son besela. When you could buy in bulk 4 soyin for a sela, then a kikar that's sold for a punjan will be henchtei sudos. That would be a kikar that provides you with 2 meals. So vikasol kadaitach. So now we're making certain assumptions. A chatzi kav. We're assuming that this kikar that you bought for a punjan is a half a kav. So now we got our measurement. Our measurement is a half a kav. So a half a kav is mozon shtei sudos. I'm not going to, it's already 6:44, so I don't want to go through the rest of the cheshbon, but this is what I was looking for. Chatzi kav. So let's just make a quick cheshbon. If chatzi kav, if a half of a kav is enough for 2 sudos, right? How many kavim would I need for 14 sudos? So it's a half a kav is enough for 2 sudos. So a quarter of a kav is 1 sudo. So what's a quarter times 14? 3.5. How many kav are we giving her? We're giving her 2 kavim. We're giving her 1 kav. So there's going to be a problem. Right? So this is what the Gemara is driving at. Rav Shimon Omer, shtei yodos lekikar, mishalois kikros lekav. When 3 kikros make up a kav, it's 2 out of those kikros. So again, Rashi, he breaks it down for us. Rav Shimon Omer, beis sudois, how much is 2 sudois? Hen shtei yodos shel kikar, it's 2/3 of a kikar, when you can get 3 kikros out of a kav. So what does that mean? The nimtza hakav is 10 sudos, which means each kav will give you 9 sudos. So according to Reb Shimon, people must have eaten much less, because according to Reb Shimon, you can get 9 sudos out of a kav, and according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, you can get out of a half a kav, you get 2 sudos. So out of a kav, you only get 4 sudos. So according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, you get 4 sudos out of a kav, and according to Reb Shimon, you get 9 sudos out of a kav. So Reb Shimon was probably much slimmer. So I'll call upon him. If you get 9 sudos out of a kav, so if you have to give her 2 kavin, that's 18 sudos. That's a lot more than the 14 sudos that she needs per week. Yeah. So Zog to Gemara, once we're talking about shiurim, we're going to give you some more information. So the amount that you need, 2/3 of a kikar, mishalish kikars lakav, that's mozain beisudois, and that's what you need for your erev tchumen. But there's a halacha, if you walk into a house that has a nega in it, and you stay in that house for the amount of time it takes to eat an achilas pras, you become tamei. So what is an achilas pras? Eating a meal. So half of 2 meals is the amount of time that you have to stay in a base of a nugget to become tamei. The chatzi chetcha, which means a half of a meal, is livstoy less a gvia. The halacha is if you eat a tiny amount of meichel that's tuma midrabanon, it's usher for you to eat truma. So even though you're not tamei midaraisa, it's usher for you to eat truma. So we're just providing different shurim for different things, but that's not what our focus is. The chatzi chetcha lekabel tumas oichel, and a half of a half of a half is to be mikabel tumas oichel, which will allow it to become tamei tumas oichel. So these are the different shurim. But again, we're focused on what a meal is. So Zok Tamar Mani, who is our Mishnah going like? If we're going to follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika Shita, then 2 kavan of wheat will only be able to give you 8 meals, because each kav will net 4 meals. We have 8 meals. That means we're short 6 meals. The Rab Shimon, who holds you get so many more meals for this amount, we said it works out to 18 meals. Either way, it's not 14. So let's say our Mishnah that says you give a woman 2 saw and that's going to cover her for the week is going according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. It's only 8 meals. Really, you get a lot more. You get a third more. You don't get 8 meals, you really get 12 meals. Exactly. Wholesale, you get 12 meals out of the 2 kav. But the chenveni, when we're talking about when you're paying a seller for 4 soin, that's not the retail price, that's wholesale. So the baker who's baking these kikarim, he's paying that amount. So if he pays that amount and then gives her everything, where's his profit? His profit is he actually charges a third more. So the wholesale, what the actual wheat can produce is actually 12. When she buys it, she's only getting, when you buy it from him, you're only getting 8 meals. But because that is the margin that the chenveni gets to keep. So Gemara, I'm sorry. So we're still low. That's right. Hachanami, Isa Tilsa, take a third shadi alayu and add it. In fact, it's still 12, and she needs 14 meals, like Moti asks. That's not a problem because the Mishnah says, so that takes care of an extra meal. If you learn when it says it means she actually dines with him, yes, so then she got an extra meal. It's still only 13. Then Friday night she doesn't eat by herself, she eats with him, so she shares his food with him. So he only has to give her enough provisions for when she's on her own. But when they're eating together, so then she can join him in his meal. I'm sorry? He's mukhayif to. Once a week he's mukhayif to eat with her. So he can do this arrangement during the week, but when he's there, he's mukhayif to eat with her. But if you hold it only means tashmish, they didn't eat with her, so ma'i kalamemer, then you're still only 12 meals. And even if he did eat with her the Friday night meal, you're at 13, you're still missing 1 meal. Maybe we'll follow what the Chisda said, that it's not marked up by a third, the markup is 100%. Same in Mechsel Lechavani. So when we say there's 8 meals, it's really 16 meals. It's really 16 meals because we're talking about the wholesale would produce 16 meals. Retail, you only get 8 meals. So we can say over here as well, also so there's 16 meals. So first of all, Kasher Reb Chisda. Reb Chisda a minute ago said that the merchants only add a third. Now you're telling me the merchants double? What is the markup? It depends on what the retailers get when they pay this seller for the saw. What are they getting? There were certain places that when you went and bought wheat from a supplier, they actually gave you firewood, the firewood that you would need to bake the bread. So therefore, included in his costs we're the firewood, so he doesn't have to mark it up any higher. By marking it up a third, he'll cover his expenses and a little bit of profit. But if he's buying it from a supplier that only gives him wheat, not wood, so now he has the added expense of buying wood too. So naturally, he has to mark it up even more because his expenses are higher. So therefore, he's only going to give you 8, even though he got 16 out of it. And still 16, and we say that she only needs 14 meals for the week. So Dr. Gemara, command Krapchitka, are you going to be forced to say that our Mishnah is going according to Krapchitka? The Amar Arba Suda is Chayiv Adam Lechal Shabbos, that you have to have 4 Sudas every Shabbos. So if you have to have 4 Sudas every Shabbos, it works out good, because 6 times 2 is 12, and then you need 4 Sudas on Shabbos, so 16 is perfect. And is that what you're going to say, that our Mishnah is going according to the Yachid or Chilta? Zok Gemara, no. Afilu Temer Rabbanon, that there's only 2 Sudas on Shabbos, so you only need 14, but now you have 16. So Dal Chada La'archi Parchi. On Shabbos, people have guests. So therefore, she needs 14. She has 16. So 14, 16 minus 1 is 15, because she still needs one extra. I'm sorry? Yeah, because this is weekly. These are weekly numbers. Yeah, but we're talking about 1 week now. Yeah, it's 14 sudas, 2 sudas per day. So I feel Tema Rabbanon, Dal Chada La'archi Parchi. So once you're playing with guests already, well then Afilu Temer Rab Shimon. Let's say it's going according to Rab Shimon, where you in fact have 18 sudas over here. L'Rabbanon, according to the Rabbanon, Dal Tlas La'archi Parchi. Maybe she needs 3 meals for guests. So 18 minus 3 is 15. And the reason why it's 15 because he has 3 sudas on Shabbos. I missed that. There's 3 sudas on Shabbos. According to Bechidka, Dal Tarti L'Archi Parchi, you only take away 2 for Archi Parchi because you need to have a full 16 meals, because on Shabbat you have 4 meals. So therefore, the Gemara says that our Mishnah that tells us that you give 2 kavod is consistent either with Hebrecha Mabreka or with Hebshim. Okay, we'll stop here. Shkoyach.